Yeah, so good morning, everyone. Well, and good evening to you guys down in New Zealand. So I'm Litmus A. Freeman. We're going to do a session today about the great year cycle of human consciousness. I want to thank you all for joining. And we're going to look. I'm just going to. So I've been studying this kind of stuff for the best part of 10 or 12 years now, since I kind of went on the road in my camper in 2010, and I ended up creating a calendar. Once I got out of the system and I was like out in nature and sleeping in my van and stuff, I found I synced in with the natural cycle, you know. So and it kind of occurred to me then how crazy the calendar was and how it kind of controlled a lot of people's behavior, you know, just by having weekends and weekdays and things like this. And we tend to do certain things at certain times because of that, you know. And of course, when you get out of the system, you don't really, you kind of forget what day it is, right? It's like when you go on holiday or something. So I ended up creating a calendar that was kind of more in sync with nature than the one that we all still use, the Gregorian one. And because of that, I got into the calendar I created. I found it aligned with astrology. So I then thought, oh, I better look at astrology. That's how I got into astrology, and then into things like what we're going to talk about today, the great year. So I just got really interested in natural cycles. I mean, my background work-wise is very different. I used to be in the energy industry. I was in the corporate world, and I quit that about 20 years ago now. And I've been, you know, on a road from like slave to self kind of thing since, you know. So yeah, what I want to do today is look at that. I'm just going to share the agenda. So if I share my screen, what we got here? Can you see that?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so what we're going to look at today, we're going to look at the nature of our natural cycles, how they work and what they have in common. Then we're going to look at the great year cycle and how it works. Once we've done that, we're going to look at where we are now in that cycle, which kind of helps to put things in context for me and hopefully for you guys as well. And we're going to look at where we've been in history, the history that we know about, and then at the end, where are we going? So you might have heard Age of Aquarius and things like the Golden Age. So we're going to have a look at that as well. Okay, so I'm just going to stop sharing now again so we can use the flip chart. And I'm going to get into part one, which is the nature of our natural cycles. And please, you know, as we go, if you want to ask any questions, just chip in. I guess if I maybe just shout or something, and hopefully I'll hear you. Okay, so
if anyone wants to stick anything in the chat as well, I can keep an eye on that and share it with you, Litmus, as we go along.
That's a great idea, Rabito. Thank you, bro. Yeah, so if we think of our natural cycles, they all have certain things in common. So they tend to go from a low point to a high point. So they'll have like an ascending arc where things are going up. They'll get to a high point and then they'll have a descending arc where things are coming down. So and at some point on the way up and on the way down, there's a balance point where things are in equilibrium. So if we think of our the well-known natural cycles. I mean, what's the first, if I can ask you guys, what's the first most you know, repeating cycle that we deal with?
The seasons.
The seasons, yeah, okay. You know, so that's a year, but there's one before that. It's quicker.
Day, night.
Day, is that Alexia? Yeah.
Day and night. Yeah.
So if we think of the day, that's the quickest kind of regularly repeating cycle that we deal with, you know. So if let's have a look at the day, and so I'm going to write on here now. So if we look at the day, we know that the Earth goes anti-clockwise, okay? The Earth rotates anti-clockwise, which makes it appear that the things in the sky, like the sun rising and everything else, go clockwise. But you know, actually, the only things that go clockwise are clocks, and the things that we see in the sky on a daily basis moving. But actually, you know, that's because the Earth is going anti-clockwise, and everything pretty much that we know about in our solar system and in our environment goes that way, okay? In the old Celtic Druidic sort of lingo, they call it widdershins. So I don't know if you've heard of that word, but... And can you hear me okay when I'm stood back from the mic? Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So if we look at the day cycle, the bottom of the cycle would be midnight. Okay. And then on the day cycle, we go through the night till we get to sunrise. So on an equinox, that'll be 6 a.m. And then we go through the morning up to midday. And then we go through the afternoon down to sunset. And on an equinox again, that would be 6 p.m. And then we go through the evening. So can you see that okay? Yeah, you can read it okay, good. Hopefully it's bigger on your screens, but so we got these four segments to the day, okay? So from 6 a.m. to midday, we call that morning. And from midday to 6 p.m., we call it afternoon. And then from 6 p.m. to midnight is called evening. And then from midnight to 6 a.m. is night. Okay, so, and then, as I say, I'm using an equinox day here, is when the day and night are balanced. And if you look at true solar time on that day, if you're at the equator, the sun will rise at 6 a.m. and set at 6 p.m. Okay, and then that varies over the year, of course, the time of the sunrise and the sunset as we go through the year. But this is the basic cycle. So midnight at the bottom, midday at the top, and a balance point halfway, and then these four segments. So that's the nature of all these cycles, those characteristics. So having looked at the day, what would you think is the next, in sort of time length, what would you say would be the next cycle that we're familiar with? Any suggestions?
The moon cycle. Our moon cycles.
The moon cycle, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously, yeah, and you probably know from moon we get month, yeah, a month. because the moon phase cycle is about 30 days. It's actually an average of 29.5 days, okay? I mean, the day one here is 24 hours, of course. So each of these sections is 6 hours. 6 hours, you know, and this is 12, and this is 0 or 24. So these are all 6 hours. Now, if we look at, so that's the day. Now, if we look at the month, the moon, again, we have a low point and a high point. So with the moon cycle, the moon is going around the Earth. This is the symbol for the Earth. And the moon goes anti-clockwise around the Earth. So if the sun is shining from here, when the moon is here, it's lit up on that side. And for us, this side is down. So we call that a new moon, because we can't actually see it. Because from Earth, we're just seeing the dark, the bit that's not lit. So the sun's coming this way. And then, like through the first quarter, the moon goes to here. And it's still lit from this side, but now when we look from Earth, we can see half of it lit up. So that'd be a first quarter moon. And that's the balance point. So that's equivalent to 6 a.m. in the day, okay? And then the moon will go around more till it gets to here. And it's still the same way. But now it's lit on this side. So we can see all of that side, and that's what we call a full moon. And then as it goes round back to here, so now again, sorry, I did that one. I colored in the wrong bit there. It should be that the other way. But now it's still lit here. We can see the other side, yeah? We can see a quarter there. Well, half of the moon, which is called last quarter. And then it goes back to new moon. All right, so just pretend that's colored the other way. All right, that one. We'll have to edit that later. So again, we've got these 4 sections. And this cycle is about 30 days. It's actually an average of 29.5 days. All right. So these are not weeks. You know, the point with the month cycle is there's no natural cycle of 7 days. Because if you divide this into 4, you don't get 7. So when we follow the phase cycle, we go in from new moon, first quarter, full moon, last quarter. And this is about 8, 16, 24, 32. You know, if it was 8 days, it would be 32 days. And if it was 7, it'd be 28, but it's actually about 30. So there's no whole day division in these quarters. But the characteristics are the same from trough to peak and the balance point. All right, and then, so have a look at the day and the month. We already talked about it, but what's the next regularly repeating cycle?
Yeah.
The year, right, yeah. So if we look at the year, and let's do the same starting at the bottom. So if we start, now it's interesting having 3 Kiwis here, because of course, me and Robito are in the northern hemisphere and you guys are in the south. So please excuse me while I talk from a Northern Hemisphere perspective, and then we'll flip it over. All right. So in the Northern Hemisphere, we have what we would call the winter solstice. For you, it'd be the summer solstice. But for everyone, it's the Capricorn solstice. So for when the sun is over the Tropic of Capricorn, for us in the north, that's the shortest day of the year, and for you down there, it's the longest day of the year. Yeah. And now the Earth, we're looking at the Earth going around the sun. And again, the Earth goes anti-clockwise around the sun. So from the low point, the Capricorn solstice, the low point in the north, the Earth goes around the sun until it's here. And this is the Aries equinox. So that's what we call the spring equinox. For you, it'd be the autumn equinox. And that's around the 20th of March in the Gregorian calendar, yeah? And then as the Earth carries on going around the sun, it gets to a point where the axis of the Earth is tilted towards the sun. When we're down here, we're tilted away from the sun. So when we get to this day, this is what we call the Cancer solstice. Cancer is this symbol. This is Aries. And then as we go around again, we get to the point opposite here, where we have a balanced day again. And this is the Libra equinox. And this is a Libra symbol. And then it goes back to the lowest point. All right, so just to give you dates for all of these, the Capricorn solstice, the sun's over the Tropic of Capricorn. And that would be like December 21st in the Gregorian. When we're on the equinox, that's March 20th. When the sun goes into Aries. Then on the Cancer solstice, that'll be June 21st. And the Libra equinox is about September 23rd, 22nd, 23rd. It's not always the same day, but approximately. So again, we've got 4 sections. And then this is 365.2422, about a quarter of a days cycle. Okay, so these quarters are about 91 and a bit days, all right? So something like that. But what it does give us is 12 equal sections of 30 degrees. And that is what the tropical zodiac is, all right? So when the year's going from the Aries equinox to the Cancer solstice, it goes through Aries, Taurus, and Gemini. So those are 3 months. Those are the 3 months of this part of the year, and that's what we call spring in the northern hemisphere, or autumn in the southern hemisphere. And then we have 3 months over here, which are Cancer, Leo, and Virgo. And then for us in the north, that's summer. And that's another 3 months. And then when we get to Libra equinox, them start going down. That's, for us, that's autumn, and for you, that's spring. And then we got 3 months Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius. And then we get to the Capricorn, and we go through what we call winter. And you guys is summer, and that's Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. And today, we're right here, because today is the first day of Pisces. So the sun went into Pisces about around 4:30 a.m. UTC, so Greenwich time. And so we got one more month. We got the month of Pisces, and then we're back to the start of the cycle, because we start the cycle for the year from the point of balance, where the day and the night are equal. We go up to the point where the day is much longer than the night, and down to the point where the night is much longer than the day. So wherever you are, this is first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. And really, that's my calendar. So it's called the Universal Celestial Calendar. I did it based on numbers, but then I found it aligned with what I discovered was the tropical zodiac. So that's what that is, okay? And because of the hemisphere thing, if you want to make it universal, you don't call it spring or autumn, you just call it first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, And then it doesn't matter where you are. And wherever you are, whether you're in the north or the south, when we're here, the sun will be in Aries. And when we're here, it'll be in Taurus, and so on. Okay, so it's universal. And basically, the zodiac that we all use for our birth charts and astrology, what that really is a 12-month seasonal ancient calendar that used to be used all over the world. And if you look at ancient India and the Persian calendar in Iran and these older systems, also the Hebrew calendar, their names for the months are the names in their language for the zodiac names. Okay? So you'll find if you look at this, basically this is the calendar that everyone used to use. And I'm going to explain why that fell into, why that stopped being the case. Okay? But hopefully you see the common things between these cycles. So, midnight on the day is new moon on the month, and it's the Capricorn solstice on the year. And midday on the day is the full moon of the month, and it's the Cancer solstice in the year. But for you guys down there, this one will be flipped, all right? So for you, the Capricorn solstice will be equivalent to the full moon and the midday, all right? Because you're looking at it from the other perspective. Okay, so I breezed through that. Have you got any questions about any of those cycles before I go on? Anything that you didn't get or didn't make sense, or you probably know a lot of this anyway, right? All good?
Yeah,
Great
I've got one.
explaining.
Okay. You got a question?
Well, yeah, but it popped in my head. Maybe you want to talk, maybe you'll mention it later or whatever. But when you say like the Capricorn equinox and that, like I was just wondering, where did the names come from for like Aries and Libra and Capricorn and etc. But if that's a really long diversion, I don't know.
It could be, but I'll keep it brief. It's a good question. The names we use in English are based on the Latin from the Roman system. But they're the names in that language for the stars in the sky that we call the zodiac constellations. All right. So if we were doing it in Greek or Hindi or something, they'd all have different names, but they're named, these months of the year are named, they're named after the zodiac constellations of stars in the sky that the sun passes through.
Okay, that was going to be, so it's the constellation that the sun is passing through at that time of the year. Yeah.
Not quite, because this is how the great year works, and this is what I'm going to explain. But
okay.
But at certain points of the great year cycle, yes, the sun passes through the stars of Aries in the month of Aries. But it's the thing is, you know, these aren't stars, these aren't constellations, they're months of the year. So it's the orbit of the Earth around the sun divided into 12 sections. And those 12 sections are named after their equivalent zodiac constellations, okay?
Yeah.
But they're not the same thing because it moves. And this is what we're going to look at, all right?
Okay, all right, yeah, I get it.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Right, so that's the kind of nature of the cycles. So now let's get into the second part. All right, so this great year thing, you know, how does it work? What is it? So the great year also follows the same nature as these cycles. So it has a low point, a high point, and a balance point, and a rising arc and a descending arc, okay? But whereas the day is 24 hours and the moon cycle's about 30 days and the year cycle's 365, the great year cycle on average is about 24,000 years, okay? So we can equivalent it, is that a word? You know, we can compare it to the day cycle with 24 hours. Because on the day cycle, you know, if we divided that into 12 sections like we did the year, each of these would be 2 hours, yeah? So this would be 2 a.m., 4 a.m., 6 a.m., and so on. But the great year is 24,000 years. And whereas the day cycle is the Earth rotating once on its axis, and the moon cycle is the moon going once around the Earth, relevant to the sun, the year cycle is the Earth going once around the sun. The great year is the whole solar system and our axis of our Earth rotating once through all 12 constellations of stars of the zodiac. Because the zodiac is our reference point. So the stars in the sky of the zodiac is our reference point. Like, where are we? How are we orientated to the rest of the galaxy, okay? So the great year is basically this tropical zodiac rotating relevant to the stars in the sky of the zodiac that those months are named after, as we were explaining with Robito's question. So basically you've got a rotation of the zodiac of the stars is called the sidereal zodiac, okay? So it's the stars of Aries and Taurus and Gemini that we see in the night sky. And that moves relevant to us. So this stays fixed. This is always the same. It always repeats. By every year, the same. But each year, the stars in the sky at night, they move very, very slowly. And they move anti-clockwise again around us, okay? Because we're rotating relevant to them the other way, all right? So to give you an idea, it takes about 72 years, all right? Which is basically, say, a lifetime. It takes 72 years to move 1 degree, all right? For the stars to move 1 degree in the sky. And the thing is with these cycles, they speed up and slow down. All right. So if you look, we can see it on the year cycle. When we're at the Capricorn solstice, we're moving quicker than when we're at the Cancer solstice, all right? So it slows down here and speeds up there because the Earth isn't the same distance from the sun at all points of the year. It gets closer and further away, okay? And that's a cycle as well. So it goes slower and faster, slower and faster. And the same thing happens over the 24,000 years of the Great Year, all right? So let's just look, let me just draw this Great Year and hopefully it'll start to come into perspective. So with the Great Year, we've also got can you still see that? Yeah. So we've also got a low point and a high point and a balance point somewhere here. And we've got an ascending arc. Okay, and this is going to be 12,000 years. All right, going up. And then 12,000 years. Coming down. Now, when I say going up and coming down, what am I talking about? Well, the thing with the Great Year is it's the cycle of human consciousness. So I think this is really good for us to talk about being in a conscious people's network, you know, like how conscious are we? So at the bottom of this cycle, this is when we're lowest in consciousness. So this would be equivalent to the midnight in the day and then the new moon and the Capricorn solstice, yeah, if we're in the north. So this is the low point where we're least conscious. So we're most dense and base, you know, and materialistic, if you like, all right? And when we're up here, we're like super enlightened. It's like the summer solstice, you know, of the Great Year, all right? So that's when we're like using all our brain, not just a small part of it. Down here, we're only using a small part of it, maybe 10, 20%, but up here, we're using all of it. And, you know, we live longer up here and much shorter lives down here. And we're much taller up here and much shorter down here, and so on. So, okay, so now how do we know this? So we know this from this guy. So this is Sri Yukteswar Giri, all right? And he wrote this book, The Holy Science, in 1894. And does anyone recognize this guy? Yeah, Alexia, where do you recognize him from?
Yogananda wrote about him.
That's right.
Yeah.
So he was the guru of Yogananda, who wrote autobiography of a yogi, and who's credited with kind of first bringing Eastern mysticism and knowledge and wisdom to America and the West in the early 1900s, right? Or somewhere around there, I think. Now, I tell you what, when I saw this guy, I thought, wow, this guy looks so familiar. Where have I seen him? And you might have noticed from my badges and my mug, I'm a bit of a Beatles nerd. So if you recognize this is Sergeant Pepper. I'll try and get him in. And can you see him up there?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
There he is. So that picture is that picture. And it blew me away when I came across that, because I was working on a presentation at a festival about my calendar in the great year, and then I realized he was on the Sgt. Pepper album cover. I'd been looking at him since I was about 10 years old, you know. So that was pretty amazing synchronicity for me. But yeah, this is who this guy is. And George Harrison was the one who put him on the cover, and he's number one. If you look at the insert of all the people on that cover, he's the first one. So that's really cool. Now in this book, The Holy Science, there's an introduction, and in the introduction he tells us about this great year cycle. Okay, and he explains exactly how it works. All right, so he tells us there's 24,000 years, and that during that time, man ascends in consciousness from a low point to a high point, and he tells you how long each part takes and what they're called, and how it all works, and how to figure out where you are in the cycle. All right, so this is a published book from a long time ago, and it's basically writing down ancient Hindu wisdom, yeah, about natural cycles. But very, very few people really even know that this cycle exists, you know. But if you start looking at it, there is stuff around it, and there's books about it. So there's this book by Walter Cruttenden, which talks a lot about this cycle, and there's this book called The Yugas, which also goes into a lot of detail about this cycle. So why is that book called The Yugas? Well, this cycle for the Hindus is called the Yuga cycle, okay, or Yuga. And Yuga means an age, like an age of time, a period of time, okay? Now, this cycle was known to the Greeks as well, who inherited it from the Hindus. And they called it the Great Year. Okay, so people like Plato wrote about this and explained how it worked. And they gave these periods of time in this cycle, they named them after metals. Okay, so like iron, bronze, silver, and gold. And this is where we get this mythical golden age from. All right. So let me just tell you a little bit about what Sri Yukteswar Giri has passed down to us in the book, and how this works. So what he said is basically we can divide each of these arcs into 10 equal sections. All right. So if we do that, one of those sections, 1/10, down the bottom here, that's called the Kali Yuga for the Hindus, right? Which you probably heard of that term, named after the goddess Kali, who's a goddess of destruction and regeneration. And then if we carry on ascending, now we go two tenths up. Not one, yeah, this is one, then we go 2. So the next bit's twice as long. And this is known as the Dwapara Yuga, okay, in the Hindi term, which just means the second age. And in the Greek system, this is the Bronze Age, all right? And this Kali Yuga is called the Iron Age. All right, so down here, this is Kali Yuga, or iron. And what the Greeks are saying there is iron. Can you see that? Is that all right? Is that on the screen? Iron Age, yeah? The Greeks are saying iron is the most base metal, yeah? So then this two tenths here This is called Dwapara Yuga, or the Bronze Age. Okay. And then guess what? The next one is 3/10. All right, so that's 3 times as long as the first one, which takes us up to about here. And this part is called Yuga, which means the third age. And in the metal system is the silver age. All right. And then the last part is 4 times as long as the first one. All right. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. And this part is called Satya Yuga. And in the metal terms, it's the golden age. All right. So if we look at, this is 12,000 years. So if we divide that into tenths, each one is 1,200 years, yeah? 1,200. So this is 1,200. This one is 2,400. This one is 3,600. And this one's 4,800. Okay. So the good news is the golden age, when consciousness is, I mean, Satya means like divine. So the divine spirit. So it's the age when we're like, you can imagine your pineal gland is activated, your third eye is open, you're one with the cosmos and one with God and all of that, right? And we don't even know what that's like. You know, we have no records of anything from that time. So we can only surmise, but, you know, soon we're going to look at where we are now and where we've come from, and you'll see, it'll put it in perspective, you know? So again, so then coming down, we have another 4,800 years of the golden age. And then another 3,600 silver age, and 2,400 bronze age, and then Kali Yuga again. And as I say, this cycle is basically us with the months of the year rotating through those 12 constellations of stars that the months are named after, okay? Very, very slowly. So yeah, like 1 degree every 71, 72 years, you know, and if you work that out, you get 24,000 years. Now, what this is called to astronomers is called the precession of the equinoxes, okay? So it's called the precessional cycle. And it's because the points of the equinoxes in our year cycle, because the zodiac of stars is moving this way around that, the equinox point appears to go backwards through the stars of the zodiac, okay? So it's called precession rather than procession. So it slowly goes backwards. So instead of going Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, and so on, we go the other way with this cycle. We go backwards through the zodiac, okay? Through the zodiac of stars, not the, don't confuse the months of the year with the zodiac of stars, okay? They share the same names. So yeah, we're going backwards. So they call it precession of the equinoxes, okay? So if you come across that term, that's what it is. Now, right now, if you ask someone like an astronomer, how long is the precessional cycle? How long is this cycle? They'll tell you it's about 26,000 years. All right, and that's because the rate of movement is not fixed. It's you know, down here is, again, we're moving slower like we are in the year. In the year, we're moving slower here and faster here. And it's the same in this cycle. We're moving slower here and much faster up here. So if you average that out, it's 24,000 years. All right. But if you measure it from a slower point and project it, prorata it, it would appear to be longer. Okay. And if you did it all from up here somewhere, it would appear to be much quicker. So up here, it might be 22,000 year cycle if you measured it on this rate. And if you measure it on this rate, it's 26,000, but overall on average it's 24. All right, does that make sense? So there's a lot of information there, but hopefully that's starting to sort of sink in. Okay, so this is how the cycle works, all right? And the Kali Yuga here, this is known as the Age of Ignorance, all right? And it's when man is if you, this guy in here, he explains what the, you know, how each age feels and works in terms of consciousness. And he says, yeah, this is the age of ignorance, and it's when man is at his most base and dense and materialistic and competitive and warrior-like and base. Yeah, it's like being in your root chakra, okay? And for anyone who knows anything about alchemy, you probably know that with alchemy, we transmute from base metals like iron and lead, you know, up into gold, right? And that's an allegory for what we're meant to do with our consciousness. And this is what happens through this cycle, all right? Yeah, so this is the age of ignorance. Now, the second age of the Dwapara Yuga, the Bronze Age, that's called the electric age. And it says that's when man rediscovers how to generate and use electrical power, okay? And then the third age, the Treta Yuga, the Silver Age, that's called the magnetic age. So that's when man rediscovers how to use and harness things like gravity, okay, and magnetism. And so you can probably guess when we look at where we are now, we're not in that bit yet. And then the golden age is called the divine age, and that's when we're in tune with the divine, what they call the divine magnetism, and our consciousness is highest. Okay, so 12,000 years up, 12,000 years down, and then through this age, we move backwards through the zodiac. So we can also put the astrological ages on here, and we can see what astrological age we're in. And that's based on where the equinox is in the stars of the zodiac. Okay, what constellation is it in? Right now, we're in the age of Pisces, because if you go out, if you're in the northern hemisphere and you go out and look in the sky on the Aries equinox, the sun is going to be in the constellation of Pisces. So the sun's going to be rising in Pisces. So the constellation that you see in the sky in the dawn before the sun rises is Aquarius, right? The one before Pisces. So right now they say we're in the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Okay, because when we look at the dawn sky on the equinox, we see Aquarius. Now, when the sun is in Aquarius, the sun will be rising in Aquarius, and then in the dawn sky, we'll see Capricorn before the sun rises. Okay, so then, you know, and so on. And when the sun's in Capricorn rising, we'll see Sagittarius, and so on. So if you've got, before I show you my graphic of the great year, which has got a lot of detail and information on it. Have you got any questions so far about the great year?
A couple of things. A question first is, when you say the dawn of, you know, the age of Aquarius, and the Aquarius is what we're going to see from dawn. How long is that? How long are people talking about when they talk about the age of Aquarius? And is that linked to this, to what you've just shared on with us today?
Yeah, really good question. So because this is 24,000 years, and there are 12 zodiac divisions of the sky, the zodiac of stars is also divided into 12 30-degree segments. Okay, so if we divide 12 into 24, we get 2,000. So each astrological age is about 2,000 years. But again, they're not all the same length, because here is slower, so they're longer than 2,000 years. And when we're up here, we're moving faster. They're shorter than 2,000 years, okay? But on average, you would say it's 2,000 years each, okay? And I'm going to show you that now on the graphic. But yeah, good question. So roughly 2,000 years, okay? But we're in the age of Aquarius towards the end, we're in the age of Pisces, near the end of the age of Pisces, heading for the age of Aquarius.
Okay, thank you. And then Alexia wrote in the comments, see The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho. I've read The Alchemist. I'm not sure how The Alchemist, Alexia, links in with what Litmus is sharing. I just wondered if you wanted to explain why you said that.
That one?
Oh, just when Litmus was talking about the alchemy of going from iron to gold and how it relates to enlightened consciousness, or yeah. It's
Yeah,
the same in the
absolutely.
story.
Yeah, good point, Alexia. Yeah, and that's a great book. It's a long time since I read it now, but I should probably read it again. But
Same, yeah.
yeah. And of course, it's very well known, isn't it, that book, for people who are on the journey, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Just gave it to my daughter.
Sorry?
I just reminded my daughter, gave it to my daughter to start. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, pass it on, right? But yeah, that's what we're doing. I mean, alchemy is called the great work, yeah? And it's about transmuting our consciousness from root chakra to crown chakra, using Kundalini energy, the two serpents up the spine, to activate the pineal gland, open the third eye, and become cosmically conscious, right? And of course, that's what the allegory of alchemy. It's not really about changing lead into gold. That's an allegory for our consciousness, yeah. And they had to use terms like that back then because it was banned knowledge, you know. You couldn't talk about that kind of stuff because it was in Kali Yuga, the age of ignorance. And the competitive warlike people who want to dominate everyone, they don't want people to know about this kind of stuff because they can't control them so easy then, you know. So yeah, good point. And that's a really good book. So yeah, recommended reading. The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. All right, so I want to get into where are we now. So the next three parts shouldn't be, we're about an hour now, okay? So we're not going to be as long on a couple of the next parts. All right, so let's just, have you got any more questions before we look at where we are now?
You're probably going to get to this, but we have some astrologers say we are coming into the Age of Aquarius, and then some saying we won't be in Age of Aquarius in our lifetimes. What is your take on that?
Yeah, well, my take is based on this and this book and my own observations of like how the zodiac works and where the equinox point is in the sidereal zodiac. Okay, and the calendar I created actually uses this as the year number in the cycle. So I've got the tropical zodiac here as the year cycle, and then I've got the sidereal zodiac around the edge. And you can actually measure this if you look at where the equinox is. It's in Pisces. All right. This is the equinox point, and it's in the constellation of Pisces right now. In terms of how the sidereal zodiac of stars is divided, okay? And here's Aquarius going to be coming up this way. So for me, we're definitely still in the age of, and I'll link you up to my calendar because you'll be able to see this like working. I'm going to show you that. But yeah, we're definitely still in the age of Pisces in terms of how it's measured. But some people say that the age starts when you see the constellation in the dawn sky, you know, as I was explaining. So for me, that's the dawning of the age of Aquarius. You know, we're not there yet, but it's coming. We can see the light coming over the horizon kind of thing, but the sun hasn't come up yet, you know. But some people say, oh no, we should measure the age when we see the constellation in the sky, you know, and then they say we're already in the age of Aquarius. But I definitely do not agree with that. And if you look at astronomy, you know, this is why it's really important for me to look at the left brain and the right brain, and to look at the science and the spirituality and put them back together. You know, and look at both sides, look at all the numbers and the logic and the data, and look at all the creativity and the artistry and everything, and, you know, look at both halves of the sky. Because if you do that, you would definitely say, yeah, we're in the age of Pisces, moving towards Aquarius, okay? But, you know, the thing is with the internet, you can find all sorts of stuff. And because none of it's edited before it's put on there, you know, anyone can say all sorts of things and put it out there. And if people read that, they might think it's true, you know? But as long as the stuff you read is backed up with sources and supporting evidence and information, you know, cool. And when I did that, I just found, yeah, we're in the age of Pisces. Okay. Right. So let's have a look at the great year graphic that I did. So I drew this morning when I got up. No, not really. I drew it a while back, but I don't know how well. If you can't see that very well, I've got a graphic that I can share my screen, and we can look at it closer up. So, I mean, you tell me. Can you read this from there? No?
No, I can't, and Carl is shaking her head as well, so I don't think so.
Okay. So let me just point out some things on here, and then I'll share my screen and we can look at it in a close-up, okay? But yeah, this is the top, the golden age, and this is the bottom, the Kali Yuga. And I don't know if you can see these at the moment, but these are the astrological ages in this circle. All right, so this is saying Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, Sagittarius. Can you read those? Yeah? Maybe because I wrote them in black, you can read those? No? Okay, so I'll zoom in on that. But this inner circle is the zodiac ages, and the outer circle is the yugas that we looked at just now, okay? So this is Kali Yuga. This is Dwapara Yuga, Bronze Age, Treta, Silver Age, Satya, Golden Age, okay? Right, and in terms of where we are now, this is where we are. So this line here, this is where we are. So, you know, this is the low point. So let me give you some, you know, in my calendar and in this cycle, this is the year 12,000, okay? Because we start from 0 at the peak, at the golden age, when we're all super enlightened. and then we come down to the bottom, and this is the year 12,000. Now, in the Gregorian time system, that is the year 500 after Christ, all right, or CE, whatever you want to call it, AD, all right? So that's 500. This is 11,500 BC, all right? So where we are is we left Kali Yuga just over 300 years ago, and we're now here. So we're just in the early part of the Dwapara Yuga, the Bronze Age, the age of electricity, yeah? And that is the time when we rediscovered how to use power. But you can see we're very low, yeah? We're still very low. We've got all this way to go to the top, like 10,500 years. So we're only 1,524 years, 1,524 years from the bottom, from the Kali Yuga, when we were most dense. And you know that even in our history in the Gregorian system, that is they call that the Dark Ages, right? Like when the Romans left Britain, and before the Germans invaded Britain, and that kind of time. So it was a really base time and lots of war. I mean, people were shorter then. They didn't live as long. You know, we know that. And we can see that they weren't as enlightened. Okay, I mean, we are more enlightened than they were, but not by much, you know. So when did we leave Kali Yuga? The end of Kali Yuga in Gregorian dates was 1700. Okay, and there are transitional periods between these times. So we fully left Kali Yuga in the year 1900. All right, so we're not long out of it. So we're still quite low, you know. So we can bear that in mind. Now 1700, when Kali Yuga, the cusp of Kali Yuga is in Europe, you know, that was called the Renaissance, like the rebirth, the reawakening. It was because we were coming out of Kali Yuga, and then we start to remember things that we used to know back over here when we were descending in consciousness. Okay. And we went into Kali Yuga in 700 BC. All right. Now, can you read that number, or do you want me to go on to the other graphic? All right. Let me go on to the other graphic. So I'm
just confused about one thing.
Yeah.
Which is everything you're saying makes sense, but I'm just a bit confused. Like, so now you're going anti-clockwise. You're going from the bottom to the top. And when Kathleen was asking about the age of Aquarius, it looked like you were going down, and you said we're not there yet. It looked like you were going clockwise, and you were like, we're in Pisces and we haven't gone down into the Aquarius yet. It was going clockwise, wasn't it?
Okay, I don't remember, to be honest, but I was probably doing it in the air.
I don't know. It's okay.
Yeah, what I was doing was I was talking about going out on the equinox morning, yeah, and looking at the horizon where the sun is rising, and then which constellation is there, yeah? So I'm talking about those constellations going down because we're going backwards through the zodiac. Okay, I know this gets confusing because it depends on your perspective and your orientation.
It gets confusing in my brain, yeah.
Right. But if you're looking at which constellation is in the dawn on the equinox, yeah, in the northern hemisphere, right now it's Aquarius because the sun is in Pisces. All right.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, at 1 degree every 72 years, those constellations are going to move down in that respect. All right.
Yeah.
So in a few hundred years, the constellation you're going to see there is going to be Capricorn, and the sun is going to be in Aquarius. That's what I was saying about it going down. You know, the sun is going to rise because the Earth rotates anti-clockwise, so everything seems to go clockwise in the sky. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But the constellations move the other way, so that's what I was saying about them going down. So I know it gets confusing, but let's look at it on the graphic. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Because now we're talking about like all the other cycles. You know, we were talking about midnight and new moon, and the Capricorn solstice being at the bottom, and the, you know, midday and full moon, and Cancer solstice being at the top. And this is the same. So the Kali Yuga age of ignorance is down the bottom, and the golden age of super enlightenment is at the top. So this is like the summer solstice of the golden age, yeah. And this is like the winter solstice, or the darkest times, you know. And it was called the Dark Ages. All right. So yeah, now, so this cycle goes anti-clockwise, like all of them do. Yeah, and we're going to go up anti-clockwise from the bottom, and then down anti-clockwise from the top. All right. Right. So now I'm going to share my screen. Where's my button gone? Seem to have lost my Zoom screen.
Share screen should be there in the middle. I'm not sure if you sound. Oh no, I can still hear you. No, it should still be there. You should see from left to right the microphone, the video, security, participants, chat, share screen.
Yeah, I've got it. I think I accidentally closed the big window, so I couldn't see anything. Right. So let's share the screen. Okay. So this is a picture of the one I was showing you on the flip chart. Okay. So here's the bottom, the Kali Yuga, and this is the top, and the golden age. Okay. So yeah, and this is where we are now. All right. Can you see my mouse moving?
Yes, we can, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we're just this little bit out of Kali Yuga, all right? In Dwapara ascending. So we shouldn't, you know, when we're down in the Kali Yuga, there's very few people who have golden age consciousness, you know, in super enlightened. They are still around, but there's very few of them. Whereas when we're up in the golden age, like everyone is like that. Okay. So I think, you know, this is probably why the gurus and the mystics run off to the caves of Tibet or wherever for a while when we're in Kali Yuga, you know, to get away from it all till it gets a bit better again. But that's where we are now. So it kind of puts into context why things are like they are, because we're still, although we're out of Kali Yuga, we're still very low in consciousness. All right. Now if we look at the next section, like where have we been? If we put our history onto this, we only know about history from where we are now, back to over here. Okay, which was, you know, back in the year 4800. Now in the Gregorian, that's minus 6700. All right, so it's 6700 BC. And that's about all we've got records back to. And that's the time of ancient India. So ancient India, we know about stuff back to then, right? But we only know about this part of the cycle, right? From here back to here. So that's about 39%. And we don't know what happened back here. And obviously we don't know what's going to happen because we haven't got there yet, going up. All right. So we only know about a little part of our history. And the rest we can only guess. But what we see, if we look at civilizations, we can see that civilizations like ancient India lasted 6,000 years, the same culture. So from ancient India and then through into the Indus Valley culture, you know, it lasted all the way down to here. So that's a hell of a long time. So what we see in higher ages, when consciousness is higher, civilizations are stable and they last much longer and they're much more enlightened. They live in a much more simple way, but they understand how the universe works. Okay. Now, for example, we look at ancient India. We can also look at ancient Egypt. So the Egyptian, sorry, this is a bit blurry, but I'll send you this on the chat so you can look at it later in a bit more detail. But if we look at Egyptian culture also, that lasted, you know, 5,000 or 6,000, 7,000 years. And if we look at things like the pyramids, the official age of the pyramids is here, like 2,500 BC. But archaeologists like Robert Schoch have looked at weathering on the Giza Plateau and the pyramids and the Sphinx, and he says it's more likely the pyramids were built up here. So in the Golden Age, you know, one of the theories for the pyramids is that they were harnessing Golden Age energy to make it last longer, you know, because people who are aware of this cycle, you know, they knew they were descending in consciousness. So that couldn't have been very nice, you know, if you know things are going down. It's like, you know, when you're going into the winter in the year, winter is coming, you know, Game of Thrones. So, you know, at least for us, we're down here, but we're going up, you know, we're ascending. So yeah, we can look back, and when we look back into history, we see that the ancient cultures like India and Egypt lasted for thousands and thousands of years. But then if we come over here, for example, this, where I've got Brit here, this 350 years is a British Empire. You know, so that so-called empire lasted a fraction of the time because of when it was in the cycle. You know, whereas when we look at the ancient cultures who built the pyramids and that stuff, and all the ancient Indian stuff with the Vedas and all of their wisdom, they were from much higher ages, you know. But we're taught that we're on a linear evolution and that we are at the end of that linear evolution. Now, if that was the case, it would be the only thing that wasn't cyclical, you know, because everything we see in nature is cyclical. So what this is saying is, from ancient Hindu wisdom with Sri Yukteswar, this is saying that consciousness is also cyclical. So it goes up and down like everything. And it's not just a linear straight line and we're at the end of it, you know. We can kind of see, if we look at the ancient wonders of the ancient world, things like the pyramids that don't use any cement, you know, we can see that we would really struggle now to build anything like that. But those guys could do it thousands of years ago.
Litmus, Kathleen has a question. Kathleen, do you want to ask your question you put in the chat?
Thank you, Lemus. This is amazing. I was just wondering, would Lemuria and Atlantis, do they fit in this great year? Would they have been in the golden age above?
Yes. Yeah, I would say they do. All I've done on this graphic, and I know a lot of this is in pencil. On the flip chart, I've written it in pen now, but I'll take another photo and send it to you. But what I've done on this graphic is put the sort of official history, if you like, on here. The things that they teach you in school, you know, and I've used the year numbers, you know, that you can just get off Wikipedia for when those cultures were there. So yeah, I mean, obviously official history doesn't recognize Lemuria and Atlantis, but yeah, I would say if you look at when Atlantis, and you know, and Plato wrote about the Great Year, but he also wrote about Atlantis, as you probably know. And yeah, you're talking about back in the Golden Age up here, past where we don't have any records. Okay. Yeah. Now, interestingly, if we zoom in again on the Kali Yuga, so if we go down here, the Roman Empire, all Kali Yuga. So, you know, it's about control and dominance and emperors and taking over territory and getting people to conform to your way of thinking and all of that stuff. So that's all, Roman Empire is all Kali Yuga. Now, where we are now, if we go back across here to where we would have been equivalent in the descending part, we're now equivalent to like Greece, ancient Greece. Okay, like so city-state Greece, where they had senators and a kind of democracy, like, you know, and that's really what the American system was meant to be based on when it was set up, you know, with representatives and senators and debate and all that kind of thing. So we're kind of level now with where they were, but we're nowhere near level with even the official age of when the pyramids was built, according to Egyptologists. We've still got like 1,500 years to go before we could be equivalent to be able to do something like that. And if we look at what we suspect the true age of the pyramids to be, all the way back up here, back up in the golden age, up here, you know, we're obviously there's no way we're anywhere near being able to do that. But yeah, with Atlantis and Lemuria, they would have been much more super enlightened. And of course, you might know if you see any images of where they draw what they think Atlantis looked like. It was a circle, right? It was arranged in a circle, lots of parts going in circles in the center with water in between them, allegedly. So to me, that's interesting as well, because it's kind of saying we understand things are in circles and cycles, you know. Another example of that is Stonehenge. So Stonehenge was built over here. Now, I don't know, Stonehenge is built in a circle, and the stones align with the equinoxes and solstices, okay? So it's telling you how cycles work. It's also in size of circles, it's equivalent to the moon and the earth's dimensions and all sorts of stuff like that. Now that Stonehenge, I don't know if you know, but the stones come from Wales, and it was originally built in West Wales in the Precession Mountains. And it was built in Wales right at the transition from the Silver Age down into the Bronze Age. And at the end of the transition here, it was moved from Wales to where it is now in Salisbury, on Salisbury Plain. So to me, that I couldn't believe that when I mean, if you look at the years that was moved, there was an article in the Guardian about this, and it was actually literally built there and then moved there. So to me, that's telling us something as well, you know. And of course, it's talking about cycles. So to me, that's another little clue. You know, what we find is the ancient civilizations built lots of long-lasting stone monuments to explain to us, you know, people in the later times, how these cycles work, you know. And if you look at the Sphinx, for example, on the Giza Plateau, let's go back up here.
Right.
Now the Sphinx is symbolic, but it looks a bit like a lion, okay? But what it actually is a composite of things that represent the 4 mid-season constellations of the zodiac, okay? But it's the head of it is facing the sunrise, and Robert Schoch says it was built in 9600 BC, right? And that's exactly pretty much when the age of Leo started. So this lion-like looking monument is facing the equinox sunrise point when the equinox was in the constellation of Leo. All right, so to me, that really is another clue that that's how old the pyramids and the Sphinx really are, you know, because it's symbolic, you know. It's the thing is built to represent the time that it was built in. You know, if we were building it now, we'd put fishes, we'd make it look like fishes because we're in Pisces, right? And of course, if we go back down here, Jesus, the man allegedly Christ, the Son of God and all that. I mean, Jesus is down here. So Jesus is born here. Okay. So he is born. He was born just in the age of Aries to tell us that what was coming was the age of Pisces. One of the things that's trying to tell us, okay? So a lot of what he was trying to say was in these ages of ignorance and gross matter and darkness in the Iron Age, he was trying to remind us about how we reach enlightenment and how we reach heaven, you know, and all this kind of stuff. Now, Jesus was really heavily associated with fishes, right? So that's all Age of Pisces symbolism. So he's telling you Pisces is coming. So, you know, if we had we're here, and if we had a guru or a wisdom, like a prophet coming now, he would probably be talking about Aquarian things, you know, saying that the Age of Aquarius is coming. And he would be associated with water bearers, you know, and all of that kind of stuff. So, you know, there's lots of clues in this to how it works in our ancient texts, you know. And if you look in the Bible, you'll see back in these times, you'll see lots of symbolism about rams and sheep and the Lamb of God and all this kind of stuff. And that's all talking about the Age of Aries. Now, one of the reasons I don't use the Gregorian calendar, except for, you know, interacting with the matrix, is that the Gregorian calendar obviously comes from Rome. So it's a Kali Yuga construction. So it's from the Age of Ignorance, and that's why it's not very good. And all the months are different lengths, and it doesn't line up with the seasons, and it's all out of sync. And it's got 7-day weeks, which don't exist in nature. And it's got weekends and weekdays, you know, and that doesn't, you know, trees don't stop growing because it's Sunday, you know, etc. So it's a Kali Yuga construction. Whereas the zodiac is this cycle, and it's based on this wisdom, you know. So it's actually, and it's all in sync with nature. and it lines up with the equinoxes and solstices and the seasons. But yeah, Gregorian calendar is from this time, and so is most of our legal system is based on the Roman system and our system of commerce. So it's all Kali Yuga stuff. And I think this is why a lot of people now, we're out of Kali Yuga and we're into Dwapara, Bronze Age, and we're starting to wake up and remember what things were like over here. And we don't want to be part of these Kali Yuga systems anymore, you know? We don't want to be controlled by the law books from Rome and the contracts of commerce and money, and that's made up by bankers that doesn't really exist, and all the rest of it. You know, that's all Kali Yuga energy. And this is why we want to leave it behind and go and move into much more into the higher ages, you know. So all of these empires that we know of in recent times, Ottoman, Byzantine, Roman, they're all in here, and they didn't last very long because they destroyed themselves with war and stuff, yeah, and trying to take over too much land, which was unmanageable. Too many people couldn't deal with it. You know, it's one of the reasons the Roman Empire failed, because it was trying to be too big and control too much. And one of the last things to say on this point for me is that the 3 Abrahamic religions are all Kali Yuga religions, okay? So again, lots of stuff in there. There's lots of good stuff in there, but there's also lots of bad stuff in there that shouldn't be trusted. And you've only got to read the Old Testament to see that. This evil, sort of vengeful God, you know, who wants to punish you for doing things wrong and all this kind of stuff. Now, that's very Kali Yuga. Now, interestingly, the Old Testament was written down. It was written down between the transition out of the Old Bronze Age into the Kali Yuga. So between 900 BC and 700 BC is when the Old Testament was written down. You know, and of course, back in the higher ages, we don't need language and we don't need to write things down because we're all connected cosmically and we have telepathy. And, you know, anyone who's done hypnotherapy and stuff like Robito does is aware of how the subconscious can work. And, you know, often you think of people and then they call you and this kind of thing. Well, now in the higher ages, that's commonplace. You know, you don't need, you know, we're told that we learned how to write and then we wrote things down. But if you study history, you'll find that all the Judaism that was written into the Old Testament, that used to be all passed on orally because people remembered it. People were using more of their brain in the higher ages so they can remember everything, and in the really higher ages, they can communicate telepathically. So there's no need for language and writing. But as you come into Kali Yuga, you can't. You're not using so much of your brain. You know, because the theory is when we're down here, we're further away from galactic center, so we get less of enlightened cosmic radiation from galactic center. But when we're up the top in the golden age, we're closer to galactic center and we get more of that. So we use all of our brain and it activates all our dormant DNA, and we can do amazing things that we can't do now, you know. But the religions, yeah, they were written in this period. So this is Judaism, you know, and then Christianity was actually, this was the time of Jesus, and Christianity was sort of written down in about 325 AD, as it became known, at the Council of Nicaea, when they decided what was going to be in the New Testament. So the New Testament is also Kali Yuga. And then Islam with the Quran, that was the time of Muhammad was like 621 AD. So that's, you know, just after the bottom, somewhere around here. And that's when Islam was written down. So all 3 of those Abrahamic religions are really in the descending Kali Yuga or early in the ascending Kali Yuga. So to me, that explains why there's so much contradiction and misinformation in those texts. And whilst there's a lot of good spiritual stuff, there's also some pretty nasty stuff in there as well, you know. And I'm not saying that to offend anyone who practices those religions at all. I totally respect everyone's right to follow whatever spiritual guidance they feel is fit for them, you know. But I'm sure you'll agree, if you've read any of those things, that there is also some quite negative stuff in there. And to me, it's because they were written during Kali Yuga.
Litmus, when were the Hindu texts? When were they written on the?
Yeah, so they were oral, so they were written down much later. But the time themselves, they were back up here, you know, from ancient India and the Indus Valley. So this is Indus Valley. So they would have been back up in the Silver Age, and then probably written down in the Bronze Age. I don't know exactly when they were written. That's a good question, and I'll maybe look that up to add to this. But you know, we're talking higher age wisdom. Now, when these things were written down, they knew they had to write them down in a way that the people of that time could understand them, right? And I think, again, this is why there's so much allegory and metaphor in the stories in the texts in the Bibles about, I mean, in the Vedas, they talk about gods flying around almost in like spaceships and stuff, right? And obviously a lot of the parables of Jesus with the loaves and the fishes and turning water into wine, you know, they're all allegorical to give you a message, but it's to explain it to people who aren't so enlightened, you know. It's more like stories for kids, you know, to explain to kids how things work. So we have to bear that in mind. And that reminded me of one more point I wanted to make. Oh yeah, the library. Has anyone heard of the Library of Alexandria? So the Library of Alexandria is where, in the few thousand years ago, it was like the depository of all the ancient wisdom and all the knowledge from the higher ages. All right. Now, interestingly, here, right in the middle of descending Kali Yuga, in 100 BC, the Library of Alexandria was trashed and burnt to the ground. All right, so that's one of the reasons we don't know what happened back up there, where I said we only know back to like 7,000 BC or something, because all the knowledge was lost when that library was trashed. So that's classic Kali Yuga behavior, you know. Let's destroy all the knowledge so we're the only ones who know it, and then we can control and manipulate people. And that's classic Kali Yuga behavior. All right. So, I mean, I could go on and on, but that's probably enough. And just to give you an idea that if we map our known official history onto this cycle, you know, we can see how civilizations last much shorter lengths of time in the Kali Yuga and are much more warrior-like and competitive, and what they want, dominance. And whereas in the higher ages, it's the opposite of that. And just the last thing to say is where we are now, it's only almost 13% of the way up. So we've only gone like 13% of the way up, and we've got all the rest to go, all right? So hopefully that puts it in perspective for you as to why things are still quite shit in a lot of ways, but they're not as bad as they were in 500 AD, okay? So I think if you study history then and where we are now, you'll see that there has been a raise in consciousness. And particularly at the time we're in, there's lots of people waking up to wanting to be more conscious, and not wanting to be so base and materialistic and everything. Like, they want to leave the Kali Yuga way behind them, you know. But we've got a long way to go. So, you know, the only way is up.
We're going in the right direction.
Yeah, we're moving in the right direction. You know, I have a lot of sympathy for these ancient cultures who knew they were descending in consciousness, and they built all these amazing temples out of stone to last for thousands of years all aligned to celestial points and things to explain to us how this cycle works, and just to say, hey guys, you just got to get through Kali Yuga, and then it's going to be okay, right? We're going to be going up again. So I really I get quite emotional when I think of the effort those people went to build all that stuff, you know, just so that we would know when we got to the point where we could decipher it, we would realize where we were in the cycle, you know. Okay, so
Thank
that's
you,
where
Litmus. Kathleen, do you want to dive into what you were put in the chat there rather than me just read it out?
Yeah, I just this has been so good, Litmus. Honestly, I love how you brought the left and the right brain into it. But yeah, my thoughts were with Kali. If we think of her as and what she embodies, I like to always put my Piscean positive spin on things that the Kali Yuga, as much as it's been very destructive, it's through that this deep shadow work that we can alchemize all this crap that our civilizations, everything's been through, in order that we can, you know, come into the silver. So it's like I can see the alchemy and see where Kali as a goddess is coming with the Kali Yuga age. I just don't see, I can't see yet how I can connect the Piscean, apart from obviously Jesus and the fishes, but yeah.
No, I mean, absolutely. And I'm not like slagging Kali off as a goddess, because Kali is a really, yeah. I mean, Kali is a really important energy, because it is like the winter, isn't it? It's a necessary part of the cycle to get rid of the stuff that doesn't serve us anymore. It's like going from Scorpio through Capricorn into, you know, back up to Aquarius kind of thing, through the dark time. Well, for you, this is the other way around, I know, down there. But yeah, you need to go through the winter to kill off all the bugs and stuff, and to replenish and regenerate, ready for the spring, so new life can grow, right? So yeah, Kali is absolutely necessary and really an important part of the cycle. But it's just that the name of that yoga in Indian philosophy is named after her, because it's the time when that happens in the consciousness cycle. Yeah, very, very necessary. Yeah. I didn't quite get what you meant about the Piscean energy with aligning with you. Can you just explain that bit again?
No, I get the age of Pisces. It's just connecting Pisces with the Kali energy. It's that kind of connecting Pisces.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
You know, it feels like, you know, very Scorpio energy, but
yeah.
If we're thinking of death and rebirth and all of that, so it's just the Pisces, connecting the Pisces with that kind of energy is where my mind was going.
Okay, I know exactly what you mean now. Thank you. Yeah, of course. So let's just quickly talk about that, because of course we have to remember the difference between the tropical zodiac that we use for the year cycle and the sidereal zodiac of stars that move, which tells us where we are in the great year cycle. Okay, so yeah, of course, in the tropical zodiac, Piscean energy is the last of the 12 signs, and it's about deep emotion and deep feeling and depth, the high imagination, and it's about past life karma, and it's about self-sabotage, but a lot about the kind of, it goes with the 12th house, right? So it's about the collective consciousness, you know, so there's a link there with the fact that we're rising through the Piscean age. But yeah, you wouldn't say that deep kind of spiritual aspect of Pisces goes with the Kali Yuga, right? But don't forget that we're talking about when we're talking about the Kali Yuga and being in the age of Pisces, we're talking about the stars in the sky of the zodiac, yeah, at the spring equinox. So we're not really saying it's Piscean energy as we know it in the tropical zodiac, okay? Yeah, it's kind of a big clock. It's like the you know, we've got the tropical zodiac fixed in the middle, and then we've got the sidereal zodiac moving around it. Okay, so we're not really saying that the tropical energy is in that age. We're just saying those are the stars that are in the sky. Okay. Okay, cool. Let me just quickly show you that. I'm going to whiz through it. But
and while you do that as well, I don't know if Carla's gonna would have a question, because as we get to the end.
yeah, Kali, you want to ask something?
No, I'm all right. I'm just actually starting to fade at the moment.
Yeah, it's about 10 p.m.
Yeah.
So I will rewatch this, but it's fascinating. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, well, thanks for sticking with us, because obviously it's getting near 11 o'clock for you, right?
Yeah. Talking
Yeah,
about
right, so-
cycles that fit, we should be asleep by now for the kidneys to do their thing.
That's right. Yeah, of course. We need to go back to the day cycle and get back in sync. All right. So let me let you get to bed. So let me just show you. This is my calendar, okay? And this is an app I created for it. So you can play with this. I'll send you a link for it. But over here, this is the stars of Aries, okay? And what Sri Teswagiri told us is that the cycle starts when the stars of Aries are in the month of Libra. All right? In the tropical month of Libra in the year, when the stars of Aries are in the sky, then that's the start of the cycle. So here's the way this is orientated for us is it's rotated now. So the golden age is over here. So that was at the top on my chart, okay? And Kali Yuga's over here. You can see that with my mouse, right? So we've just rotated it because this is the way it's orientated for us compared to our year cycle, right? So I'm just going to show you, this is what happens. So Aries moves, okay, into Scorpio, and then it moves into Sagittarius. All right, so the month of Sagittarius. So in December, you know, in this time of the great year cycle, that's Aries is in Sagittarius. Then that's the end of the golden age. And then that's when Aries is in Capricorn. All right. And then Aries is in Aquarius. And then we get to the end of the Silver Age. And then Aries moves into Pisces. So this is the year 1669, look. Gregorian minus, so BC. All right, you've got that there. So then we get to the end of Dwapara Yuga, go into Kali Yuga. And then we get to the bottom of the cycle. And that's when Aries is in the month of Aries. So what's interesting for me is when Aries is in Libra, so when the opposites are lined up, that's when we're most enlightened. All right. So this tells you a lot about how the zodiac works, because the houses and the signs are all in opposite pairs and they complement each other, right? So when we've got Aries in Libra, we're very balanced and enlightened and super cosmically conscious. But when Aries is in Aries, we're not balanced at all. We're like out of balance, and we're in the Kali Yuga, okay? And then it goes on. Aries moves through. So this is roughly where we are now in the 13,200s. That's the end of Kali Yuga. And then this is roughly where we are now, you know, in the 2020s. I mean, this was the day I took this shot of the app. All right. So the last part, where are we going? we're going towards the age of Aquarius. All right, so this is when the age of Aquarius starts. So here's Pisces now. Pisces will be, the stars of Pisces will be fully in the month of Aries. And this is Aquarius. And we got Aquarius starting at the spring equinox. So that's in the year 14,168, all right, in my calendar, which is Gregorian 2,667. So we've still got about 600 years till we're fully in the age of Aquarius. All right. And then it goes on all the way through. And that's what happens. The sidereal zodiac moves around us. And it takes 24,000 years to do it. All right. And that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I know it's late for you guys down there, so thank you for staying. I think we lost a couple on the way, but understandably so. So thank you very much for staying awake. And I'll let you get to bed, but unless you got to ask questions.
That was awesome. Thank you. I'll go dream about it now.
Okay.
And I have to incarnate in 600 years so I can be at the age of Aquarius.
Exactly right. Exactly. Like I want to reincarnate in the golden age, so I'll see you there. Yeah.
Okay. Boom. Thank you.
Maybe,
Good night, everyone.
yeah, go and speak on it. If you got any questions, we can chat about it online or whatever. And thank you very much for staying.
Well,
yeah. Good night.
Oh, it was brilliant. So glad I joined. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Good night.
Night all.
Night. Night.
All right, Litmus, I'll stop the recording and then we can have a little chat.
Yep.